I'm wondering if there is a going to the opposite extreme of, in line with what you were talking about. Um, I seem to be as if suddenly, with all my life situations and things I've been going to, I suddenly realized a lot of stuff and a lot of ways in which I was doing what you were describing, like going into spirituality to not do some things that I wanted to be doing. And now I'm like very focused on like, okay, what is it that I want to do and where am I not facing what I want or have to face? And I'm like pissed, like mad at self-inquiry and like this I don't know, like a thing like it's all to be extreme, no? It's not that I totally think like that, but it's all a farce, farsa.
Farsa, yeah. How do you say that? It's
Farce.
farce, yeah.
So I'm wondering if like I'm on the extreme of going towards the people that never did anything of spirituality and like are only in the world, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a matter of balance, right? And it's also a problem if we're bouncing back and forth to the extremes. But often when we're out of balance, to move towards the center, to move towards balance, will feel like falling to the other side. And also, I think you've very recently did this movement.
Yeah.
So give it time.
Yeah, it feels like going to the other side, as if no interest and not doing very little self-inquiry or
I think it's appropriate. There's this, what's coming is the saying, I don't really know where it's from. I don't know if it's from Jesus or some other, but to give to Caesar what is of Caesar and give to God what is of God. And so ambition is of Caesar. And the energy of ambition should be invested in the world ethically and with high values and all of that, right? Aligned to deepest desires, and but otherwise it's mixing it. But the more we give that energy and put it in the right place, there will be a deepening in the inquiry. But just let the inquiry, or let's call it the spiritual work, let it come back on its own, or come from its own. Just let it blossom on its own, because otherwise you're putting the energy of ambition in a spiritual pursuit to awaken, which is an idea that you have of about what it is. And it's an energy that in fact you're just avoiding putting it where it belongs because it's terrifying. But if you align that, if you harmonize it, put that energy where it naturally is wanting to go, in your case, I'm talking specifically to you, right? So for others, the opposite might be true, but it's more common this way, especially people who are coming to these groups. It's more likely that if there's any imbalance, it's in this direction. If you go to a corporation, the imbalance is going to be the other way around, like generally speaking. So if you put that energy in the right place, then the deeper desire of knowing your true nature will bubble up naturally and from a deeper place, and a place that's more honest. With by honest, I mean with less agenda.
Yeah.
And it's just a rebalancing. Like there's naturally always a, our teacher who I showed the picture, Roberto, he spoke a lot using the metaphor of a tightrope. And so being in balance is not static. It's a constant finding of the center. It's a constant realigning. There's no such thing as like being in the center. It's a movement. And the vibration of aligning gets smaller and faster to a point where it looks like there's no movement in a professional. But a beginner is going to be going like that, doing these big swings. And you could think of these swings as like taking a few years. Then a few months, then a few days, then a few hours, then a few minutes, seconds, and then and the faster it gets, the smaller the movements, to a point where the person who is walking the rope looks like it's just walking in a perfect line without any vibration. But if I'm sure if you look at the muscles, they're doing this very quick vibration, aligning the balance.
And the balance of, like, I'm finding also that what I want the most is super dynamic and super, you have to learn how to balance there too. Like at one time you start making an idea, okay, I think I want this, but then you realize you also wanted something else, and you rebalance. And is that it that's like a different kind of balance in the sense.
Yeah, it's a different balance, but it's still a similar thing. But in that case, it's a maturing towards something deeper.
Yeah.
But that has to do with like a balance of in the world and your capacities, talents, how you discover them, mature them, evolve them, and find a place in the world where there's a positive synergy. And that's a balancing, but it's also a deepening. in that you start to discard things that were less important, and the things that are more core appear to be more stable. Like for you, for example, music has become a stable core interest. That's how you can tell. Like, if it's very hard to spend, 30, 40 years pursuing an art and it not coming from some level, from a deep place. You'd be bored and tired before you can do that.
Yeah.
But it's very common to have be into fads or more superficial pursuits or things that are curiosities that you can get very passionate about, and then they live its kind of trajectory, and then they pass as something no longer that important. But it all adds to the process of growing, learning, and discovering.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the balance, if in that balance you could put in the equation also the curiosity for self-inquiry, like, or it's just something separate, a different kind of balance.
No, it's, if you put it into the framing of like what you're interested in, yeah, it's something that's a balance. But when I was saying earlier about this balance is waking up and growing up, I'm talking about the perspective of where are you moving from. And so if we're operating and it's all about time and it's all about the future and growing and arriving, that's one, it's tipping to one side. And if it's all about being in the present moment and ignoring the future, ignoring the past, then I'm falling out onto the other side. But the balance is when I'm balanced in this middle, there's actually that kind of not two-ness. And there's a deeper understanding of like, I am in presence, not running from reality, not running, avoiding the moment, and also embracing the movement of time and align with the movement and the evolution, versus one or the other. If I'm trying to be present, avoiding time, I'm in conflict with my own mind. Because the mind, what it does is it projects future.
Yeah. Yeah, you're rejecting part of the present, really.
Exactly, you reject part of what is, which is there's movement and there's a mind that predicts a future that has ambitions, a body, and there's a life that has a force. All of that's getting pushed against.
Yeah, makes sense.
And vice versa, if I'm avoiding the present moment and I'm all aligning at arriving tomorrow at the thing I want, I'm running away from what is present here now, which is probably some fear and pain. With the idea that it's going to go away when I arrive at this thing that I'm running towards. They're both ways of running or avoiding something that is. Saying no to something that is.
Yeah. Yeah, great. I have it a bit more clear.
Yeah, and give yourself time. You're just starting to rebalance. don't rush, don't rush it, and don't worry about the curiosity of self-inquiry. Just let that be your hobby, and do it only when you are very naturally curious.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. We should be free to imagine the future and pursue interests and desires and plan and go towards what we most deeply want in a life that is short, so to say, and meaningful. And at the same time, be free to sit quietly and not do anything and be in presence and be content with what is. And so, whichever of these two seems to be, on average, more difficult, that's where we need to lean into more. And that's always a balance, right? It's like um, it might change during the day, but what often happens is like one of them is really hard, and we're better at like pushing away everything of the future and just finding kind of some kind of calmness, but it's not a deep natural calmness because we have to be avoiding, and vice versa. We have to be kind of always running a little bit, always thinking about the next thing we're doing, and we can't sit still. But we should be free to go into both at any time. And then from that freedom, we'll be able to be in balance.
Well, one doubt that comes to me is, um, for instance, like in my case, or I think also in your case, um, or I'll talk about me. In my case, for instance, I think it's always been a bit of kind of hard to how do you call it? Yeah, be ambitious in the world and push towards goals and I don't know, do all like really go into the world. Um, why in a case like this that it seems to be what's the hardest for me, or it seems to have always been the case. Why, since very young, like since I don't know, 18 or whatever, I felt a need to get into these groups, to follow a teacher. I don't think it was all is a way of escaping from that I like of going into the world.
Yeah, do you hear that I'm saying that was an escape?
No, but it's just that based on what you're saying, I am interpreting like that when you're balanced to that side, that which I seem to have been balanced
Which side? Sorry.
to the side of being afraid of going into following ambitions and going into the world and huh?
So when you're overly focused on ambition in the world, you're saying? Sorry.
No, the other way around.
Okay.
But it seems to be the hardest thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm not saying both are valuable. I'm not saying if you're focusing on one, you're focusing on something that's not valuable. All I'm saying is it won't go as deep if you're only focusing on one.
Right.
It'll go deeper if you're balanced. And by balanced I mean you're able to you're not cutting anything out. You're not saying no to any aspect. Well, let's say I'm calling it two aspects, right? I'm non-arbitrarily saying there's these two aspects: growing up, waking up. I'm saying it'll go deeper if the approach is balanced, and by that I mean you're not avoiding one.
Okay.
The whole thing requires both. Ultimate freedom, let's say, requires both. Wisdom, maturity requires both. But if you're only focused on one, it's not going to go as deep as if you're learning the balance. It's like, how far can you walk on a tightrope if you're always leaning to one side?
Okay. Yeah, I understand that.
So I think you're referring to when I say it's an avoidance of the other. So, which means that's when I say it's not going to go as deep because part of the energy is an avoidance. Part of the energy of the inquiry is going to be an avoidance. A part of the energy of the pursuit in the world is going to be avoidance of the present, etc. And that energy is going to be, in a sense, it's not going to be productive. It's not going to. It's not going to. It's like doing self-inquiry, but not being honest internally with what you see. Or pursuing something in the world and you're really just avoiding, it's going to create some form of imbalance or problem. But in aspects, it's going to work in both ways. Part of the energy is going to bring fruits, but it'll go deeper if it's balanced.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think I was also kind of interpreting my past in a sense when I asked the question, like I'm not really sure what I needed since I I was assuming that what I needed the most at 20 when I went into this work was going into the world, and I don't know, maybe I needed both. Um, yeah, that's where.
The reality is that you can fully wake up now, nothing is needed. But why don't we? Something's avoided. And so it's also that the answer is also a mystery. Why don't we? It's a mystery. But one aspect that I can say is like something is avoided. And so face what is avoided, and it'll be more natural.
Because waking up has to do with facing what brings the most fear.
No, waking up has to do with seeing what is real. So seeing what is not real as well. But if we're avoiding, you begin from an agenda to not see something.
Okay, yeah.
So you're just going to be in conflict. It's like I want to wake up, but I don't want to see what I will see if I wake up. Good luck.
Yeah.
And the reality is, we already know. We at a deep level know what we're avoiding. You can also take the perspective of it's discovering a peace that is not conditioned. Therefore, you should be okay with what is. You should be okay with the world, with ambition, with fear and pain, with the mind being super active, crazy, anxious. Any of those that are rejected, we begin from a condition. I will be okay, or this will be okay. I will be at peace only if my mind is calm, only if there isn't fear, only if there isn't pain, only if. Therefore, we will not discover the peace that is unconditioned.